Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry I've taken so long. As I've shared on the video series, I'm an expectant father, and I've started a new job. So between being an expectant father and the job and other things, it just sort of ate up my life. I've been meaning to do a video here, and it's just, sorry. Anyway, I was looking at videos to do, and the one that I kept coming across, sort of, I thought would be a lot to be found, was Aspies and dysfunctional families. And what I realized was that's very much the Aspie. What is true for me is true for everyone, which happens with neurotypicals, but with Aspies I think happens a lot more. I ran into an Aspie who's, yes, I don't have my glasses on tonight, but that's due to just me having cooked, and I took them off for that. I've run into Aspies with all sorts of interesting viewpoints that this is true for me, so therefore it must be true for everyone, or this is true for me, therefore it must be true for all Aspies. We must all be exactly the same, just like me. And I thought I wasn't like that. Excuse me, I'm adjusting the camera again. There we go. I wasn't like that, but as it turns out, yes, in fact, I am. I am adjusting the camera again. I had made that self-same mistake with this. Oh, my family's fairly dysfunctional, so therefore every Aspie's family must be fairly dysfunctional. That's not true. Especially as I started thinking about it, I read David Finch's book, again, citing that book, Journal of Best Practices. His family sounded very normal. I've talked to other people, his families found very normal. So why is my family dysfunctional? Well, my parents met in high school. My dad was 16, my mom was 16 when they started dating. Or 17 anyway. They divorced when they were 27. I was 2 years old. So my dad was 26 anyway. My father's father split when he was quite young. The biggest problem was that growing up in the Jewish community out east, on the East Coast, all his mother really wanted was to have a nice Jewish husband, and the problem was all his father wanted was to have a nice Jewish husband. So it didn't work out well that my grandfather was actually repressed homosexual and living in the 50s. I feel for the guy. But anyway, my grandfather was also severely bipolar, didn't take medication, and had on top of that, a rage issue. Now, I don't know what part of that came from his repression of his sexual identity. What didn't? I do know that for that, both my grandmother and my father suffered quite a bit. So he was raised in a household with a lot of shouting and screaming, and I'm pretty sure he was physically abused because I was damn near 30 by the time he mentioned that somebody who came at him physically, he actually offered to do violence upon them, which any normal adult would do. He would always say, I'll call the cops, or you can't do me, or this and that. He would always try to use his words, and my mom told me stories about him getting his ass kicked in high school because he would not fight back. And that was my entire life. And we got in one fist fight, and he denied it because he's not a violent person. He also, for the first 6 months after he had a fist fight with my next brother down, denied it, but eventually 3 of his 4 children he had fist fights with. So that's dysfunctional. My mother grew up in the Irish community of the same town that she and my dad are from, and her father was the chief of police of her small little community. My dad was from the next town. And he was not a pedophile, maybe? He liked his own daughters and his own son in a sexual manner. And that continued on until she left high school, to the point that she moved the day after she graduated high school to go live with my dad. And she, as she was leaving, my grandfather pulled his service revolver on my dad and told him that he would take my mother over my dad's dead body. My dad fled to the neighbor's yard and said, "I'm sorry, sir, but if you shoot me now, it's murder." That was my parents the first 18 years, and then they tore at each other, and then they divorced, and so they're severely messed up. My mom is just a real piece of work. Same thing for my dad. So this had profound detrimental effects on me, and here's why. If you come from a normal family, you may want normal family things as an Aspie, but you would maybe perhaps not know why. If you don't come from a normal family, then not only do you suffer all of the same effects. I tended to date crazy women for a very long time. As my current girlfriend points out, she's also crazy. Then I described what my exes were like, and she was like, not that crazy. She goes, I'm crazy light. They're crazy, not light.
Fun crazy.
She's fun crazy. She's fun crazy. My exes are not fun crazy. So, and then, yeah, she's a lot of fun, and she's a little nuts sometimes, but she's also very pregnant. She stuck her tongue out at me. She's right up there. And so what had occurred to me was that Aspies will generally, just like NTs, but I think to a slightly greater extent, consider whatever they grew up with to be normal. And I honestly think that we, as Aspies, really owe it, whether our families were dysfunctional or not, to evaluate whether what we grew up with was normal and what the effects of that were. A quick rundown, I don't know what a family is. I don't understand why you want to have good contact with your parents or your grandparents or your aunts and your uncles, or your cousins or your brothers and your sisters, okay? I genuinely get along with all of my brothers, one especially. I genuinely get along with one of my cousins really well. I genuinely get along with most of them. Well, sorry, two of them quite well. And I didn't realize how well until one of them came out for a visit out where I am, because she lived the next state over, and now she's back east. And so I contact these people. I care about these people. I genuinely get along with them as people, not as my cousins, as people. My mother has commented several times at least that while I get along definitely with one of my cousins, his brother I'd also get along with. I just haven't talked to his brothers much. She has to go out east regularly for work, so she meets them. And so the consequences of this are that I'm about to head into a family situation. I'm going to be a dad. I have a girlfriend. Things continue well. We are thinking about getting married here in, who knows, a year at least. Maybe as much as 30. We don't really care. If it happens, it happens. But I'm going to have sort of that, be the father of that mother-father-child situation, and I don't know how to do it. I was not raised with, I was raised with male figures in my life, but I wasn't raised with fatherly figures in my life. My mom and my stepdad literally just celebrated 30 years together as boyfriend and girlfriend. They have never gotten married. They're both been divorced, and they never decided to get married again. And I was raised with him with the impression that he was just waiting for me to move out. He moved in when I was 4. So I spent 14 years with my mom's boyfriend, who it felt like he was just waiting for me to leave. And even when I had to stay there for a week due to some Michigas 2 years ago, it really felt like he was more than happy to give it. He was the first one to suggest that I come stay with them. He really did mean it, but at the same time, it was not because I was his stepson or that he was my mom's son. It was because he was my mom's family. It was somebody he knew that needed help. This is something he would have suggested for one of his friends to do, or somebody else from the SCA to come live with them for a week. But it wasn't because I was anything like a close family member. And the truth is that he has a severely messed up, dysfunctional family. So my mom has a messed up, dysfunctional family. My dad has a messed up, dysfunctional family. My stepdad has a messed up, dysfunctional family. And in her way, my stepmother has a messed up, dysfunctional family. So I get it from all sides. And if you have a normal family, then kudos to you. And if your family is doing great, and if you're doing great, and if you know what it all means, then kudos to you. But the point of this whole video is that my whole family is messed up, and I was going to do a video on all Aspies and what that means for dysfunctional families. And the truth is that I think that, like everything else, it's all magnified. That the dysfunction in my family was magnified in me because of my disability. And I think that The normals, you read David Finch's book, he didn't understand why things happened. They just happened. We did them because we did them. We didn't understand why. And this self-evaluation that I've really gotten into this past few years is something that all Aspies can do. Imagine how obsessive we are about a task. Now, what if we turn that obsessive eye that goes out into the world and casts it out, and we turn it inside? Sort of like the third eye from Eastern philosophy. What if we turn that inwards and examine ourselves? We can miss a lot. That's why I found therapy very useful, because she could say, oh yeah, you were very good about that, you missed this. So yeah, turn it inwards, examine what you are, because if you have a normal family, then kudos, but you're going to encounter people that don't. If you have a dysfunctional family, you're going to think that's normal. It's not. As always, I'll ask you to probably use therapy, so go out and get some. We are much more or less likely to have stable relationships, to have stable jobs, and this is all because of that social aspect. So how you are raised has a great impact on your ability to function in society, in a social situation, as a father or as a brother or as an uncle. By the way, I'm now an uncle. I have 2 nephews, one born to my brother and one because his now wife had a child from a previous relationship. So 2 nephews. I got to figure out how to be an uncle. Never had an uncle in my life that meant anything. I have uncles in name only, really. I'm gonna have to be a father for a good portion of my life. I had a father in name only, and a stepfather in name only. I had a mother who has messed me severely up. And so if you had normal, then great. But you really ought to examine, what about that was normal? Why was it done? I have to examine dysfunction and then figure out how to achieve function from that. If you have function, you're easier. You've got function, okay, why was it functional? One step. Boop, I got dysfunction, okay, I got to get function, okay, why is it functional? I got to add an extra step. 50% more work, at least. So yeah, do this, figure out why you need to do it, figure out why you think it's good to do it. Okay, don't take other people's reasons, don't take other people's methods, don't take other people's ways. Do it yourself. Figure out what works for you and why. And y'all have a nice week.